All right. This it's over, thankfully. That's all I got to say. Welcome to Night Shift. Eric Lopez here alongside Drew Glukov with the Citronaut hat, starting off with controversial content gear here. Bryson Turner joining us here. Of course, obviously just witnessed, well, really everybody should have expected.
I don't know. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I mean, you know how you're really scared of something going into it, and once you finally face it, it's not as bad as you thought it was.
A bad roller coaster?
Yeah, sort of like that. I mean, look, considering that this was the number 3 team in the country, especially that second half, I'm okay with this. I mean, I'm not like okay because obviously we got blown out and you hate to get blown out, but I mean, the team looked better than I've seen them play in the last 2 games, and I think that says something.
Drew, what was your thoughts on the game?
Well, I mean, this went exactly as I expected. UCF needed to pitch a perfect game. Essentially, they did not. A lot of mistakes. Things got a little bit better as the game went on. Obviously, the bad pick 6, that's part of the process. And, he telegraphed the throw. Good defensive back jumps on it, makes a play, boom. Once that ball was caught, he was gone. You take away some of the mishaps, special teams especially, where things just kind of fell apart again. The defense, the passing defense was fantastic. Desmond Ridder held under 200 yards passing, under 60% on his completions. You couldn't ask for much more on the passing defense. Just Jerome Ford, he's a monster. And he just ripped UCF a new one, almost 200 yards in the first half. I think it was like 189, 4 touchdowns. This game was over by halftime. And the rest was just kind of coasting. As I said, I just kind of went what I expected it to go. Cincinnati's for real. They are one of the top 5 teams in the country. They do deserve a shot at the CFP. And UCF's just short on horses. Either they're not there or they're beat up. And you put a true freshman in the most hostile environment that he's going to face all year, and things just don't work out. And that's kind of what it came down to.
Well, a few things. First of all, make sure you follow us on our YouTube page here at Black and Gold Banneret. Like us. We have a lot of content up. We usually post coaches post games. We also post live shows, interviews, exclusive interviews here on Black and Gold Banneret. Make sure you subscribe and like and press the like button. Make sure you go to blackandgoldbanneret.com for all the latest in UCF. And, of course, follow us on Twitter, UCF_Banneret, and like us on Facebook as well. Me and Drew we're running that ship, right? We're running that over there. Here's 3 thoughts. This team was banged up. They weren't going to, this was a men versus boys situation. I think this tells you that the previous staff's recruiting was not very good. So just remember that the next time people keep saying that Randy Shannon's this great recruiter, because he's not. He keeps just stealing paychecks from every school in the state, apparently, which is a good gig. Hey, good for him. So this team doesn't have.
It seems to me that Josh Heupel. I mean, when you look at what he's doing at Tennessee, he's very much an offensive coach, but it seems that he's a little more neglectful of the defense and doesn't really mind them as much. And so that's why the defense that we've been seeing has kind of gone to not very good, especially the secondary.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You had players that got tossed off the team last year. Half of them, would have probably still been here, going into 2021. You can't replace those guys that easily. You have underclassmen. You have, players that are playing out of position. The best players on defense have been transfers. That's never a good sign. That 2018 class has basically been a giant dud. And you look at Josh Heupel. A guy on Twitter asked me, do you think UCF misses Josh Heupel? And I said, not in the slightest, because everything you're seeing now is a result of what that coaching staff left. A lot of people are very upset with the play call and game planning of Gus Malzahn. You're seeing what happens with the middle third and the deep third passing outside of that wheel route pass that Richardson should have caught last week, caught it this week, 35-yard gain. There's been next to nothing in either of those. All the interceptions that have happened, minus the one that was the pick six, have all been in the middle third. He hasn't had completions in the deep third. That takes time to develop that chemistry, understand the speed of the receivers, to know where the release point is, how hard to throw it. Obviously, the connection's not there, and you're seeing a lack of results. That's why everything's underneath. There are guys running downfield. Mikey Keene is going through the progressions and ending up with a shorter throw. That's not so much game planning or play calling. That's just the way the play's developing. Receivers aren't separating, and he's not showing the confidence either in himself or his receivers or the combination of the two to really push and make that happen. The really nice pass to Nate Craig Myers that moved the ball. There was a lot of separation between the receiver and the defender based on a cut, and he was able to throw it in there. But there's not a lot of these threading the needle plays that you would see out of a Dylan Gabriel or previously with the Mackenzie Milton. You're just not seeing it, and that'll come. But as we've talked about before, this is no longer a team aiming for a conference championship. This is really a team that's aiming for development.
Yep. No, it's a rebuild. It's a rebuild.
Full eligibility as well, I would say.
Well, it's a rebuild. I mean, they got to rebuild this roster. You knew when coaches are very aggressive on the transfer portal, that tells you they know there's some holes in this roster. Mm-hmm. And I know people have been trying to make if this team was healthy, they would be undefeated. First of all, I don't agree with that. I think they lose the Louisville game because
they had all their players.
They had pretty much all the significant players in that Louisville game. Dylan Gabriel played the entire game.
When Bowser went down, the whole complexion of the game changed. But I mean that you can't do all this what if on single play stuff. I mean, it is correct. What it is.
Well, and here's the point.
You deal with it. It's part of the game.
Correct. And here's the point. Bowser's your best back. He's a transfer. That's the point.
Transfer. You're right.
That's the point. If there was better recruiting from the previous staff, you would have had somebody ready to go. They don't. That's the thing. We said this before the season. To your credit, Drew. To your credit, Brett. You all posted it. I ran away from it because I don't like posting negative stuff, contrary to what some people think. I don't like writing or saying UCF's going to lose or they're going to get beat up bad, but it's reality. And this team had a very thin margin. Even if they were healthy, they could have been healthy today. This result wasn't going to change. Maybe it's a more competitive game for sure, but this was not going to change the result. The game that really where you could say the team, if they were a little bit healthy would have, changed the result is the Navy game. And even with that, we'll get to what cost them the Navy game. And I do think there's a concern we have to address a certain side of the ball. But to finish the thought, all that matters now, you're 3-3. And I said this on the podcast. I said this on Twitter. Some people get mad about it. Everybody's, Cincinnati's a big game. No, it's not. You had no chance to win this game. To me, guys, the big game is Friday night against Memphis. You're 3-3 now. Where is this team going moving forward? I think we will have answers after the Memphis game. Because if you look at the schedule, outside of SMU,
every game's winnable.
Every game's winnable. But at the same time, other than UConn, they could also lose all those games. And that includes the one at USF. And I know USF just choked the Tulsa game away. So they got their own issues. But to me, I do think this defense is improving. I think Bowser back is good if he's healthy. I don't know who knows what his health is. This team has a chance to go 8-4. And if they can go 8-4, to me, considering all the adversity, that would be successful. But we're going to find out Friday if that's realistic or not based on how they come out and play against Memphis here, guys.
Absolutely. It comes down to the fact of, you got to play with the horses that you have, and you look at all these games ahead. You only need 3 wins to get bowl eligible. And some people, it's a lost year. No. You got to play the long game on this. Yeah,
absolutely.
2021 is not a good football year for UCF. As Coach Malzahn said, he's never had to deal with this many injuries at one point. I mean, it's just the way it worked out. It's unfortunate. You roll the dice didn't come back favorable, and you kind of have to deal with it. But the season's not over. You got to play for something. If you're not playing for 2021, you're playing for 2022. But 2021 is not over. It's very much up in the air. UCF can still get themselves bowl eligible and make a decent bowl game within the American. You can't throw in the towel. And even a bad program like South Florida, they lost a heartbreaker against Tulsa. They just kind of choked the game away, but they haven't thrown in the towel. I mean, UConn won. They played Yale. I mean, they won. You might as well shut the place down after losing to UMass.
Did they storm the field? I mean, who knows? All 10 of them. Well, don't you think too, Drew? Real quick, don't you think too? The rest of the season is you got to evaluate what you have, and this staff has to evaluate what you have. Who can play? Who's guys that you can build with moving forward, and what positions potentially you may have to go to the transfer portal to fix. Recruiting, obviously, you got to nail it in recruiting. So far, so good. We'll see. Help is coming on the way, but you also have to address. And I think Mikey Keene, every rep he gets is important because you need to know, is he the long-term answer? Even if Dylan Gabriel does come back next year, because you can't expect Dylan to be here forever. So I think there's a lot of questions this team that we have to find out between now and then. So I agree with you. The 2022 season has started unofficially because I think everybody on this roster, you have to evaluate and see where they stand on this program for next year and beyond.
I agree. But then again, you always have to be in evaluating mode, especially first-year coach in a new program. You have to be constantly evaluating what do you have, what do you need, what do I need to focus on. That's why when people are posting online, bring back Scott Frost. No.
Scott's got his own problems.
And you're actually seeing the result of what he really is. He won with George O'Leary's players with a little bit of his own, but he never had time for a full class. So you really can't judge how he as a coach would have been. You saw the result with Josh Heupel. He had the 3 years. 3 years is the magic number. You got to give a coach 3 years. And, while 2020 is kind of a throwaway year because of all the opt-outs, I think the message was still loud and clear that the defense was heavily neglected and was just, dying a slow, painful death. Now it's time to restart. They brought in Bryson Armstrong and Big Cat Bryant, to help, hold over from the old crew towards a newer crew that they're going to be bringing in. But this takes time, and they don't just magically just show up on campus. You got to get them, and you got to get the right people and the right stuff, and then you have to develop them. It's a process, and we talked about before. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't expect the world in year one. The hype of Malzahn coming here and making magic happen was definitely overhyped. But
you're saying it's not our time this year? Not our time?
Apparently, it's our time to be on television. But apparently, it's not our time.
What a year to be on a series, by the way.
Well, hold on.
No, actually, this is great.
Hold on. I'm going to disagree with you on that because I think that having our time here this year, I've said this, I think having our time this year was the perfect time for us to have this because we need to see what this program is made of when they're not in the position that we saw them in 2017 and 2018. This is when you really get to see what this team is made of. And when you see, this is the first time I think I've been on live to talk about this, but watching Kalia Davis after he got hurt was absolutely heart-wrenching. And that's the type of stuff that you get to see when you watch that. You get to see the blood, sweat, and tears that these players do that, and they go through. And you see Gus Malzahn doing his darnest to coach these guys, and so is Travis Williams. I mean, with the amount of time that basically seeing these guys makes me really believe that we can bounce back from this. We just need to have some patience.
I agree. This was probably the best time because part of it is about the, you want to see the exposure of the program and masking. Wins mask a lot of things. They cover up a lot of negative aspects. But when you lose, all that stuff comes out, and you're seeing a lot of the human aspect, like Kalia Davis in the locker room when he was hurt. very raw moment. That's great television. That's the stuff that you don't see. You see the face that they put on, outside. You don't see that raw emotion. And that's what a lot of this show is about seeing what you don't get to see on a regular basis. And I think that's great. I think.
Oh no, it's been a really good show. It's been
really well done. I forgive for being misattributed.
You sounded great, Eric. I don't know what you're talking about.
We're talking. Kalia Davis was episode 5.
I know, but I'm talking about the show as a whole.
Yeah,
the show as a whole.
His favorite episode was episode 4 when he appeared as Eric Lopez and made some fantastic points. You were the highlight.
By the
fantastic points, and that's the best part of the series when I got to act as Eric Lopez.
You did a heck of a job,
man. I did a great. I need a career change.
Well, let me ask you about the guy you spoke about in that episode, and that's Mikey Keene. Your thoughts on Mikey Keene? Had some rough moments, but I thought Dan Orlovsky was fantastic. Made a great point. I thought a key point after the interception, pick 6. How does he respond after a turnover? Mikey Keene kept competing. He made some nice throws there. He was obviously put in a bad spot. Not a lot of quarterbacks are going to perform very well in this spot. Dylan Gabriel didn't. A lot of people don't. Your thoughts on Mikey Keene and what you saw from today, overall for the big picture?
Well, Mikey Keene is definitely a true freshman. He looked the part, but he never quit. He never stopped. He never gave up. He kept going. And when he made a bad play, he turned around and just tried again. He got sacked. He came back out on the next drive and tried again, throw the pick 6, comes back on the field, tries again. You look at the numbers, and the numbers aren't great. 16 to 27 for 141 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Not great. However, you got to have a very realistic view on this. This is a kid that's still learning the game, that's still learning the speed, and you played against one of the best secondaries that you will see in college football anywhere. Not just UCF schedule, but in all of college football. That they were one of the best secondaries. And, Sauce Gardner may be the number 1 corner when draft day comes. Very possible. If not number 1, probably number 2. That's hard to work with. And it limited Keene's ability to work downfield. And part of his inexperience played into that too. A lot of underneath stuff. Some of the best plays the team had on offense were the unexpected plays, the end arounds. It didn't help that the running game was largely neutered, throughout most of this game. And it wasn't until later that, Isaiah Bowser was able to start running the ball with anything. He was pretty much held to 4 yards for the half. It was absolutely terrible. And so you're expecting the true freshman to be the only working source of offense? No, that's not fair to him. And that's not fair to, the rest of the offense to really expect that. A true freshman's got to be a game manager, not the guy who's carrying the load. And the offensive line just did not have the explosiveness against the Cincinnati front. It just didn't happen. The running backs just could not find lanes and could not break tackles. I mean, the tackling technique from Cincinnati was fantastic. Luke Fickell is very much a defensive-oriented guy. No surprise that the defense is the strength of Cincinnati. It has been since he's taken over. Has always been their best part. And Desmond Ridder on the other side just runs himself. He just does, he does his own thing. They kind of let him be kind of an on-field coach, and it shows. That only adds to the pressure that was put on Keene, because the defense, of UCF was giving up a lot of yards on the ground, a lot of points. And, okay, all right, son, now you got to come back from 28-7. Good luck. It's 42-7, 42-4, and now it's 42-14. All right, get back out there and go get some more points. That's a lot to ask for a true freshman, and that's not fair. And I don't think you can be critical and say, he needs work. He needs to work on his timing on the deep thirds. He needs to have a little more faith in his receivers in the middle. But it's not fair to say, this is on you Mikey, for not delivering, because I think he delivered exactly what you should expect him to deliver against this kind of defense. I'm looking more at the running game for not delivering.
Well, hold on. When you look at the stats, though, Mikey Keene, aside from the interception, put up very similar stats to Desmond Ridder in the passing game. You look at the net passing yards, Mikey Keene has 141, Ridder has 140. Completion percentages, Mikey Keene has 59%, Ridder has 57%, which go so Mikey Keene threw the ball 27 times, completed it 16 times, Ridder threw it 23 times, completed it 13 times. Average yards per completion, Desmond 10.8 for Cincinnati, 8.8 for UCF. Mikey Keene managed to perform right on level, in my opinion, with Desmond Ridder in this game. The complete difference is just the complete difference in experience. Desmond Ridder is very much ready for the NFL at this point, and he could have gone to the NFL draft if he wanted to, but he stayed in Cincinnati. Meanwhile, Mikey Keene is a true freshman, and he's going to make the mistakes that are associated with being a true freshman, like that interception that he had. So I would honestly say that Mikey Keene really showed some flashes today, and I'm very, like he has before, and I'm very excited for his development. But that's the key. He still needs development, and he needs his receivers back too, because missing J Flash, Eric Edwards mentioned, that certainly does not help matters. But I will say, one receiver was probably the only player that Cincinnati seemed to have trouble with today, and that's Ryan O'Keefe.
Well, Ryan O'Keefe is a fast guy. He's the fastest receiver on the team. So it's no surprise. And when he can get in the open field, things happen. Look at his 51-yard end-around run. He got into the open field, was able to cut through defenders. I think they underestimated his speed and had bad angles, and was really able to make something out of it. But, he had trouble separating, going downfield. And as a result, Keene got stuck with a lot of short routes. However, it's also the offense was designed to get the ball to Ryan O'Keefe. He's been leading the receivers the last 2 games. That's by design. It was designed for him to be a focal point of the offense, because if he can get the ball, there's a chance of things happening. But again, that tackling technique by Cincinnati was very good. Very strong, very on point. And, while Keene's stats were very similar to Ridder's outside of the one interception, other than that, they were within a few points of each other. The running game was the big difference. Keene had to carry the offense. Ridder's passing was the secondary aspect. He didn't have to be a hero, and he could just kind of pick and choose. And there's no secret that Desmond Ridder has had accuracy issues over the years. Not a secret. In fact, this was his best year. He was throwing about 65%. So one of the keys I said is get him as close, closer to 50%. He was going to force more throws, which he did. And it would have been worse if they actually had to go to the passing game more. They actually kind of deviate away from it even more so in the second half, because they didn't need him. They already built such a big lead. All they had to do was run the ball. And that's largely what they did in the second half, just because they could. And as a result, you have more than double the yardage on the ground by Cincinnati compared to UCF. And there is your biggest X factor.
Oh, yeah. Well, how much of that? Let me ask you this, though, Drew. How much of this? I mean, to me, Cincinnati was pressuring early. I think Cincinnati didn't respect you. They were going to take the running game away. They were going to make Keene throw the football.
Oh, of course.
We talked. You and I talked. We talked about this on the podcast this week. The defensive approach for Cincinnati was going to be different than what we've seen the last couple of years against Dylan Gabriel, right? Because before they would play the pass, keep everything in front of them, the 3-3-5. This one, they were coming with pressure. And UCF, look, Cincinnati was just a more physical football team than UCF. Period. They
were
beat
just
them
better
in the trenches, right? They're just a better football.
Just better.
Team.
And Jerome, you just got to accept that.
Amazing. Jerome Ford, absolutely amazing.
He's going to be in the NFL too, by the way.
And he's built like a tank.
Yeah.
He's built like a tank. Absolutely.
Mike Doty chimes in, has an interesting question. Why did let's see? Oh, no, that's not the question I was looking at. The other question I had was more. He's going at 100 miles an hour. Mark Anthony Richards. We kind of saw him at the end of the game. What do you make of the running back rotation. They obviously are playing Richardson. I was surprised that Bowser played. They kind of limited him. Hopefully he's okay because I think they're going to need Bowser at full tank. Mark Anthony Richards seems to be more of an end of the game guy. What do you read on the backfield there, Drew?
Well, I think they ran Bowser more than they should have. I wouldn't have run him the second half. You get him out there, you get some reps in, and you get some meaningful reps in, and you know what? You let him heal. Let him keep healing because obviously he's still not 100%. He's good enough to go, but it doesn't mean you're at tip-top shape. Obviously Trillian Coles, did not play. That was one of those late scratches. And so you saw Demarius Good at the end of the game when they were bringing out the second unit, and then Mark Anthony Richards. I don't know why he's been held on to the very end because it happened last week. It happened this week. And he's done good things when he's been on the field. I know he's been fighting. He fought some injuries, before, and maybe he still has some lingering issues and he's on a snap count. I couldn't tell you on that. That's actually a good question for Coach Malzahn. Unfortunately, we couldn't fly to Cincinnati to go pester him about it, but it's actually a very good question of why don't we see him more often? Because he's been creating, he's been delivering. He has he's bigger than Johnny Richardson, not quite as fast, but he still has enough speed to get to the outside and is able to break tackles more so than Richardson can. And that becomes a good combo because, with Bowser still on the mend coming back to as close to 100% as he could get, you need a guy who can kind of, bridge that, thunder lightning while the thunder aspect is still not quite there. So, I don't have a good answer for it, but it's definitely a very good question.
I agree. And I think it's going to be very important here moving the stretch because for this team to have success the rest of the year, they need the running game. And I think it's going to be a combination of Bowser, Richardson, Mark Anthony Richards. They need to run the football. This is not a team that's going to win the game airing it out 40, 50 times. No, that's just too much to ask of Keene. And I think, look, other opponents are going to try to stop the run. So this team has to find a way to be physical with the football. And I know fans they keep talking about airing it out. That's not the issue. That's not the answer here. I think they need that running game to help Keene out because that would open up the passing game. The good news is they're not going to see a defense like Cincinnati the rest of the year. Not even remotely close.
I'll say this: Mikey Keene did make a very great pass on the run to Nate Craig Myers on the sidelines. So I think that kind of shows you the opportunities that maybe he can get when the running game allows the passing game to be opened up a bit, especially with Keene's capabilities. Like Keene was sent scrambling a couple times, and he managed to do well with it most of the time when he was caught off guard. He's not Dylan Gabriel, freshman Dylan Gabriel or anything, but he's certainly shown flashes.
He froze. Anyway, let me jump in. Let me jump in on that one. Because it was actually a play that I talked about earlier where he had a great throw and it was a good sideline pass. However, on the negative side, there was a lot of separation between Craig Myers and the defender based on a cut to the outside that Craig Myers did. And as a result, it really wasn't as much of a precision throw. Throwing on the run's never easy, but it was either going to be, an incomplete pass or on being out of bounds, or it was going to be a catch, but there was never a risk of a pass deflection or any of that. I want to see his development continue. I want to see the same type of throw with coverage, with a closer press coverage. It's just obviously you take what's given to you, and he made a great read. Craig Myers recognized the fact that Keene was rolling to the left, changed his route, which is what broke him open, and they were able to connect. Keene was hung out to dry on multiple occasions last week when players were not changing their routes based on him rolling out. In fact, the play before the 49-yard catch by Johnny Richardson, he rolled out to the right, and no one was there to help bail him out, so we had to throw the ball away. What part of what the receiver needs to do, and you've done this playing pickup football when you're younger, is you recognize where the quarterback is and you adjust your route. things break down. Obviously rolling to the left was not part of the plan, but kudos to Craig Myers for recognizing that and knowing he was the closest one to the sideline that could turn around and go put himself in a position to make a play. That's what needs to develop. And that's part of what what more practice and game time will help do, is develop that rapport, that understanding, that connection. Okay, I'm doing this, I need you to do this, and have faith in each other. It's a two-way street. It's not just Keen having faith in his receivers. His receivers have to have faith in him, and it doesn't happen overnight. Now you talk about Gabriel and his ability. Gabriel had some of the best long pass touch that I've seen out of a freshman quarterback in a very long time. Problem was, in his freshman year, he couldn't hit short passes. It was the other way around. Keen's short passes are fine. It's his deeper passes that need work. So obviously, every quarterback's a different story. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes exposure. It takes mental maturity, and that just comes with time. And UCF fans they have to be able to swallow the pride a little bit. I know there was a lot of trash talking with Cincinnati coming into this. I'll be honest, I picked Cincinnati to cover this, and the score just says it all. It was 21.5 points by the time kickoff happened, 22, and they covered it easily.
Yeah.
You just have to have realistic expectations. Take your lumps. UCF got to curb stomp Cincinnati in 2017, humiliate them off their own field.
Yeah, this was payback. I mean,
this was payback. They were out for blood.
Yeah. And when you have former quarterbacks talking smack, that's not smart.
And to answer Jim John,
that was what I was going to bring up there. Yeah,
I've made comments on this before. Johnny does have a habit of outrunning his own legs, where he'll start to lean forward and then fall over. That comes with having so much raw speed. He basically is outrunning his own legs, and you can't lean that far forward. I mean, I remember I was in the UCF Marching Knights when I was in college, and a guy who's not supposed to have his music on the field dropped his music, so I tried to swipe it, and of course I'm marching a giant sousaphone, and at that time the sousaphone players are running on the field, and I tried to sweep and get it, and I started feeling top heavy as my 35-pound horn started to go towards the ground. I dropped to my knees, let it ride up, and popped my shoulder out of the socket. But that's neither here nor there. It's the same thing. You can't get top heavy and lean forward. It leads to bad things. You got to stay upright. In fact, he said last week when he didn't fall over that he stood upright, and that made a difference. So he needs to keep standing upright, not lean forward, and he'll keep his footing a lot better.
Let me ask you about an area of the game that I think has to improve for this team to have a success here in the second half of the season. That's the special teams here, Drew. An 8-yard punt that basically set up
that punt was partially hit.
Okay, but I mean, it results in an 8-yard punt. I mean, I'm not saying it's the punter's fault.
I'm saying is that's not the punt. I'm not putting that on the punter.
Right.
That's on the blocking. The second punt, though, the one that was in his head, the 27-yarder, that's on the punter.
And then they had a fumble on a punt return that basically set up Cincinnati for another score. Your thoughts? I mean, the special teams. What can anything be done? Is that just? I mean, what are you seeing from the special teams? Because I said this earlier. The Navy game I've maintained was on the special teams. The special teams cost them that game, and obviously it didn't. I don't think it impacted this game. But for this team to move forward, there's little room for error. They have to be solid on special teams. They were last week, and they won the game. They were not what they needed to be today, obviously.
Eric, it's focus.
Comes
back to focus. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt, but Mike Doty had a comment that I wanted to check out on Twitter, and Chris Vanini confirmed it. Luke Fickle said that Gus Malzahn had to rush out because of a family emergency, and he said everyone say a prayer for them. Something might be going on with might be going on with Gus right now.
Okay, well,
I just want to make sure. I just wanted to make sure that was addressed and that we know about it. But go. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure. Go ahead. I just wanted to make sure.
It's okay. Obviously, that's big news. He probably isn't staying for the post game, press conference.
Well, and he shouldn't. He shouldn't. I mean, obviously,
no. If you got an emergency, you go take care of yourself. You take care of your family.
It's...
That's obviously first priority. Football in the end is just a game. As I've always said, the sun will rise the next day, but sometimes there's cases where in real life the sun does not rise. So whatever the emergency is, I hope everything's okay. But getting back on topic, this is a focus issue. Muffing a punt, dropping a kickoff. Those are focus issues. There's no excuse for that. You got to be spatially aware of what you're doing. I mean, he tried to, Amari Johnson tried to Willie Mays that. At that point, you know what? Let the ball go. If you're not in a good position, get out of the way, because the worst thing they do is they down it. But as a result, you caused a fumble that led to a touchdown. I mean, there's no excuse for that. And Johnny Richardson, I don't know really what happened there. Why, did he take his eye off the ball a little bit? But he misread the kickoff. Instead of being a touchback, it ended up being started just outside their own 5. I mean, this is not how you stop the bleeding in a game against a better opponent. As I say, you had to pretty much pitch a perfect game, and this is the opposite of perfect. The tip punt that led to it being deflected into an 8-yard gain. Okay. Blocking somewhere went wrong. Obviously, that's still a work in progress. The second punt, obviously the first one got into his head a little bit, and he didn't have a good second one. But you look at the rest of the game, he actually got better as the game went on. Towards the end, he hit 2 or 3 50-plus punts, towards, later in the game. But the damage was already done. While special teams did not cost the Cincinnati game, they killed any chance for any positive momentum to be developed, because you gave Cincinnati short field on multiple occasions, and that team was good enough to convert it into points. That's what it comes down to. But focus. It's all about focus. This is a mental game. Football's a mental game. Physical is a certain aspect. But if you're not mentally there, you're going to make these kind of mistakes, and that's not acceptable.
All right, here, as Bryson mentioned earlier, here's the Chris Vanini tweet. Obviously, developing news out of Cincinnati. There, as you see, Chris Vanini, obviously from The Athletic, he's at the game. Luke Fickell says Gus Malzahn had to rush out because of a family emergency and asked everyone to say a prayer for them. So there, it's a very serious situation. By the way, I really like Luke Fickell. I think he's a class guy. I think he's handled the media so well. I think he's been very honest about this whole playoff thing. But hopefully things are turn out okay there. We don't know what it is, what's going on. Obviously, if we find out more information, we will let you know. But certainly a developing situation there at Cincinnati. But Luke Fickell, guys, really, this is why he's one of the top coaches in the sport. I think his team was prepared. I know he said in the postgame he wasn't happy with the second half, but this team is not going to look past anybody. This team is always prepared under Luke Fickell, and he's doing a great job navigating through all the attention and all this playoff talk stuff that people always get ahead of themselves. And he's like, we're just focusing on getting better right now. And they have admitted they have to play well and be impressive.
They have, and that's part of their motivation of the players, at least, is, he's not a style points guy. He's a blue collar Ohio guy. And I respect that, because that, being from Ohio, he's a typical blue collar Ohio guy. There's not style points that you would find else, that you would, have the mentality of, a guy in the Southeastern Conference or out West. There's no style. It's just, I'm going to go there. I'm going to hit you in the mouth, and I'm going to try to win the game and play really hard defense. I respect that. What you see is what you get. Kind of like George O'Leary. What you see is what you get. He wasn't talking out both sides. He was very upfront. Luke Fickell is kind of a breath of fresh air. He doesn't give you all that much coach speak. He just tells you what he feels, and usually what he feels is go hit guy. Very, very simple. But obviously his defenses are not simple. They're complicated enough that it'll throw off even the best of quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel has struggled against Cincinnati's defense, especially when they were running with 5 defensive backs or 6 defensive backs. He struggled. He's 0-2 against Cincinnati. And, Dylan's pretty good. So that tells you something. But, I mean, you have to really be impressed with the work that Fickle's done. The fact that he told bigger programs, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. I like this. I like Cincinnati. I like being in my home state. He's a homebody. His wife's happy there. All the ingredients for building a sustained program in Cincinnati is there. Add on the Big 12 move. He now has more incentive to stick around because they're going to have more resources soon to work with to do even more and build a better, continue to build a better reputation. We talk about UCF being in a position to build towards the future. Cincinnati's got the present and the future. I mean, everything is looking rosy in Southern Ohio, and I don't see any that changing. The only question is next year, how do you replace Desmond Ridder? But as we saw with Evan Prater, he didn't really throw the ball, but he ran it just fine. So a little bit of work, and they may be the team to beat again in the American.
Yeah.
Hold on. We got more developing here. I want to post this real quick, and we'll continue our conversation. Mike Pedreglia, who I actually know, I'm friends with Mike Pedreglia. He's now covers Cincinnati. He used to cover the New England Patriots. He just tweeted out a little bit a while ago here. Luke Fickell ends the presser asking for prayers for UCF coach Gus Malzahn, who had to leave on a private jet to care for his daughter. So
obviously something's going on. Let's
just have our prayer, or let's just thoughts and prayers on that. That's obviously a very serious situation, and let's hope for the best. Oh, there you are. There's you.
It's like that meme.
There he is. See, we wanted to give you airtime, but obviously a serious situation.
Look at Derek Lopez.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, we're gonna just keep telling that joke the rest of the season, aren't we?
Probably for a while. Oh, I didn't mean to lose him. There we go.
Oh, thanks.
Press the wrong button.
I guess there can only be one Eric Lopez.
Something like that.
It's like the Highlander. There can be only one.
But look, obviously a very serious situation there with Gus and his family. So thoughts and prayers on that one. And man, Drew, you and I think have talked about it either on the air or off the air. Like, I hope today humbles some fans. I get it. It's not the year you thought it would be, etc. But some years are just not meant to be. Some years are meant to be. Some are not. But there's more important things. And obviously the Gus thing is just the latest example, man. I hope that we kind of today is a marking of, hey, let's humble ourselves a little bit. Let's take it game by game. Let's not get crazy over every result, over every play. These are human beings. There's a lot of more important things that in life in general. I hope this in some ways humbles us a little bit, because I feel like we've been, feeling our bridges, if you will, for a few years. And this happens to everybody. Every program, every sports team has their ups and their downs. And this, this program is going to be fine in the long term. But man, I really feel bad hearing that news, and I just hope that that family, which has been they have supported UCF athletics. I've seen them on campus. They've been going to softball games and things like that. They are, there's that family thing, and I just feel for them. And so hopefully, I just hope everything works out. You know what I mean? So.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think, the fans, in recent years, there's a degree of being spoiled. I mean, the run from 2017 to 2019 doesn't happen on these Johnny come lately programs. UCF's a very young program. They're, it's not, there's no way to dance around it. UCF is basically a Johnny come lately. You go back 10 years and, 2010 was their first bowl win, the second conference championship. That was just a little more than a decade ago. So basically from 2010 to 2020, you have basically all the material FBS success that you want. And there's a little bit here in 2007 with the conference title, and you had the FC, the 1AA run back in the 90s. And 1998, where they should have gone to a bowl game, and they got Murphy'd by Murphy's Law. But for the most part, this is all new stuff, and fans have gotten a bit spoiled. And maybe they had to be knocked down a peg or two to understand that. I mean, you don't wish for the team to lose. That's just silly. No one wants to do. I wanted to be wrong on my prediction of the game. We always want UCF to win every game, but to win every game is so unreasonable to expect on a routine basis. I mean, Ohio State lost a game and Alabama lost a game. It happens. It's the nature of the beast. How many times in UCF's 25-game winning streak did they get a lucky bounce that saved them and continued it going? I can think of a few off the top of my head. You've got Memphis in 2017. You got the second game. You've got Memphis in 2018, the regular season game. You have Memphis again in the championship game. You have USF in 17 with that kick return. I mean, there's multiple games that if the ball bounced this way instead of this way, it's a loss. And you saw that in 2019 when the luck just kind of ran out. Cincinnati game was like that. The Pitt game was like that. The Tulsa game was like that, where just the ball just, you got a 50-50 ball of some sort, and it just went the wrong way and it just didn't go your way, and you lost as a result. So I think fans got a bit spoiled at that success kept working, and then it just stopped. And we saw it work a little, come back against Boise State. We saw that lucky bounce come again against East Carolina, but it doesn't always work that way. And the Navy game's a good example where you had there was a couple of 50-50 shots that just didn't work, and you have to accept that. You don't have to accept it in the fact of we're not, we suck. No, you accept the fact that sometimes the better team does not win the game. You can play the game 10 times, and 9 out of the 10, one team may win, and you found that 10th game. I mean, that's why they play them. Sometimes it just happens that way.
All right, we got some more news here. So Gus Malzahn apparently has talked to the media. He did do his presser. I'm going to post this up right now. Trace, our good friend Trace Trelko from Sons of UCF, is at Cincinnati. He just uploaded this opening statement. I'm going to try to play it. And so bear with me here. This is Tech Live programming, ladies and gentlemen. But so he did do the presser. So we're getting some conflicting stuff here, but let's listen to this.
Okay, first of all, congratulations, Cincinnati, on the win. They're as good as advertised. Congratulations to them. Well, we didn't play well. For us to have a chance, we would have to play really well offensively. The first half, we weren't able to run the football, get anything going. Defensively, I thought did some solid things in the first half. I think they lost a little hope right there when they were on the field a lot. Special teams, they had the big. I think they got a hand on the punt, a short field. With that, at halftime, we kind of regrouped a little bit. Came out with a little bit of spark in the second half. We got to have big plays. I mean, we had a couple of explosive plays that led to points. Defensively, had a couple stops in the run. Special teams, we had another really catastrophic thing happen. The ball inside the 10-yard line. It's one of the best teams in the country. You can't do that. So they beat us handily. We got to take it like men. We're halfway through the season. We got to get better. So now, as coaches, we know what we have and all that. We need to finish this thing strong. Question.
All right, so that was Gus Malzahn on the postgame. Just spoke there, courtesy of Trace Trelko, who's doing a great job. He's at Cincinnati posting that video. I hope we can react to what he had to say there in a moment, but I hope that is a sign that, things are okay. I don't know. We'll don't know. I hope that, hopefully family is taking care of whatever they've got to take care of. So maybe it's one of those things he's doing it quick. I hope that he's not being forced to talk, and I don't think he would be forced to, but anyway, I'm just kind of, my thoughts are with his family right now, but let's what are your thoughts on what he had to say? Look, he was pretty nonchalant about it. They just beat him, and now they got to finish, finish strong is basically the message there.
Well, I mean, he knew going in that Cincinnati was the better team. That you could tell there. They tried hard. They did the best they could. They tried to make adjustments and try to create a spark. It worked for short periods of time, but they couldn't really sustain it. But they flat out got beat by a better team. And he acknowledges that. And, hey, we have to get better. If you look at Desmond Ridder has gone on the record saying the humiliating loss at home against UCF in 2017 was a major catalyst to teach them of where they need to go. And then the 2018 game reinforced that even harder of, hey, we're pretty good. We're ranked. We're gonna do something. And they got humiliated on national TV, on prime time, college game day, environment with Herb Street there and everything. They got humiliated. They started off strong and then just were non-existent the rest of the game. That tells them, okay, we got to work on this, this, and this. And you know what they did? They worked on it and they fixed the flaws. Now, coaching staff has to go back, and this was over a period of multiple seasons. Now, coaching staff has something to go back to. Okay, we really got to work on this, this, this. But this is stuff that's got to be addressed in the offseason through our recruiting, through our transfers. It's not going to be an overnight thing. And fans have to understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. The sprint part is work with the horses you have. The marathon part is bringing better horses that fit the system better so that in future years you have a better product. We just got to buckle up and just hold on for the rest of this ride.
I'm being told we're trying to get more clarification on the situation there with Gus. He did do his presser. From what I'm being told, the news of the situation with him taking a jet either broke after he was done with the presser. We're still trying to get more clarification of what's going on in that situation. Again, we hope everything turns out okay. We're going to play a clip here in a moment. Gus has some thoughts on the special teams there. Bryson, I know you're monitoring that situation. Have you seen more?
Yes, a WKMG reporter tweeted out earlier that she has reached out to UCF for more information. So there are some other local journalists that are trying to piece together what is going on. So again, all we can really say right now is thoughts and prayers, and we just kind of have to wait and see what's going on. I imagine that if Gus is available for media availability this week, this will probably come up. So at this point, I think we just need to give our thoughts and prayers and just be patient for more news to come out.
Yeah, it was Jamie Say, who is the sports director of WKMG. The local media is going to try and find out what's going on. Well, we're going to try and find out what's going on. Yeah. Everyone's trying to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
All we can do is hope for the best and that whatever emergency this is blows over.
Amen to that. That would be tremendous news. And obviously we'll monitor the situation. He did speak, the media, Trace, again, courtesy of Trace Trelko, who's in Cincinnati, the host of Sons of UCF alum, our good friend of the show.
Great friend of the show.
Great friend of the show. Making a cameo here whether he likes it or not. Here's Gus Malzahn's comments on special teams.
8-yard punt, and you get the field, but you get the 8-yard punt, and you give them a short field, and they're able to march right down on you.
Well, I think they got to handle the punt. Again, we got to protect the punt. That's not good.
It's fundamentals. It's what it comes down to. That's basic fundamentals. Is you got to have your blocking assignments. I mean, that big punt block by Navy, that was the touchdown. Guy was uncovered, and the assignments were wrong. So I'd have to go back and look again and see who was on the blocking assignment. But that's a focus thing. It's a mental thing. It has nothing to do with physical. It's all mental. And if you can't get your head out of your own way, this stuff happens. And a team that should do better does worse. Because 90% of this game is all up here. It really is. And, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Football is a mental game. And you got to get those fundamentals down, especially when you have such a small margin of error like you do against a top 5 opponent like Cincinnati. You can't afford an 8-yard punt, a 27-yard punt, a muffed punt return, a bobbled kickoff. You can't afford those.
Kick out of bounds.
A kick out of bounds. You're right. You can't afford to have these mistakes that start in your head and only get worse as you let it kind of get in there and settle. I have to give Andrew Austin a lot of credit. After those first 2 bad punts, it got better and better as the day went on. And, but the damage was already done. They've already given up the touchdowns. Momentum was gone. Any positive momentum they can develop was non-existent. Damage was done. But you got, especially beginning game, you got to start it on a good note. And it just did not happen. And in the case of that first punt is because someone messed up the blocking assignment.
So, Drew, we haven't mentioned this yet, but we talked about the offense and the special teams, but we haven't really mentioned them all game, and I think we probably should because they ended up coming on pretty well in the second half. And that's the UCF defense. Tatum Bethune once again led the team in total tackles with 10, and then Devod Wilson and Bryson Armstrong come behind him, both with 8. However, you've said that it's frustrating when defensive backs lead the defense in tackles. In solo tackles, the top 2 solo tacklers were Devod Wilson and Quadric Bullard, both defensive backs. So, just your thoughts on the defensive performance.
The passing defense was fantastic, just absolutely fantastic. You could not have asked for anything more on the passing defense. They did their job. Desmond Ridder, 140 yards. That's great. The running defense was the problem. And you're seeing the lack of Kalia Davis right there. He was such a presence at plugging the hole. Even though there's talented guys behind him, you just can't replace that. And they were able to run up the middle at will. And that's partly why Bethune had such a busy game, why Quadric Bullard had such a busy game, and Bryson Armstrong, is all those guys are in that middle area of the field. Armstrong, a Bethune linebackers, Quadric Bullard is a safety. And I always, hate talking about how you should never have a defensive back as one of your, as leading the tackles. Thankfully, it didn't happen again this time. But Devod Wilson had a very busy game. But he made a lot of tackles by himself. He actually led the team in solo tackles. So that's good. It's unfortunate that the metrics that we use for stats don't have some of the other ones like you would get out of the NFL, such as broken tackles and missed tackles. Because I would love if they were able to do it quickly, like that we would have it now. Be able to find out, okay, how many missed tackles did we have? That's probably a more telling thing than how many actual tackles. But the passing defense, fantastic. Cannot be stressed enough at how pleased I was. Now 2 weeks in a row, the much maligned defensive backs stood up and did not allow themselves to be pushed around. The front,
and that's why I'm still optimistic here, guys, about the rest of the season. If they can get a running game with Bowser, Mark Anthony Richards, and company, help out Mikey Keene. You play well defensively. If you could just get better special teams play, they can win games here down the stretch. And if they could go 7-5, 8-4, go to a bowl game, get some growth, it's still there. I'm not going to react based on the Cincinnati game because, again, Cincinnati's in a different level right now than UCF, just as reality. So I think there's some positive signs there. We just got to see if they can put it together starting Friday. I think we're going to learn a lot on Friday.
I agree. The season you've gone to that one team that you really had no chance of beating. That was the one game that you had circled of, what, this is a wash. We're gonna take our lumps. We're gonna move on. Every other, even SMU, UCF could have a chance against. That one, I don't expect them to win. Every other game is very winnable. Tulane, Temple, Memphis. This Memphis team can't figure themselves out. South Florida, who seems to be very good at messing things up. These are all winnable games. And you need 3 out of 6 to go to a bowl game. Hit the reset button. You've taken your lumps. You try to get some positives out of this and move on. It's a whole new season. It's kind of like when you go to, it's like, best of 7 series and it's 2 games apiece. You hit the reset button. It's now a best of 3 series. Here it's 3-3. Hit the reset button. It's like you're 0-0 again. Go get 3 wins. I think it's doable, Bryson.
Yeah. I think that and Eric said that we the 2022 season kind of starts now in some ways, and honestly, with the way this defense looks, because a lot of the reason why this defense is the way it is because they're just underdeveloped right now. But there is still talent there that I think that if it gets developed, that these guys could be turned into a very capable defense. You have Tatum Bethune, he's a junior, it's likely he comes back. Quadric Bullard, he's a sophomore, see he could come back. Josh Seliskar on the defensive line, sophomore. Tremont Moore, you have Justin Hodges and Corey Thornton. You get them, so you get them more reps, and I think they could be something. Like there is Keenan Hester on the defensive line. Bryson Armstrong and Big Cat Bryant may not be around all that long, but you have several defensive talents on this team that I think if you give them more development, that they will turn into something good. I mean, Tatum Bethune has been leading the game in tackles, and basically, I think that he will get some more support once the defense gets more developed, and I think that could happen as soon as 2022. There was one question. Jim John asked the question, we had speed advantages all over. What is our identity now? I think the thing is that we don't know yet. And
still working on that.
And I think that's the whole point. That's what this season is about.
The identity is injuries, right? That's the problem. They're on the bench.
This season is about finding our new identity because we're basically getting a preview into we are already in the post Dillon Gabriel era. If Dillon Gabriel, who knows if Dillon Gabriel comes back or decides to leave for the NFL, a la Tua Tagovailoa. We don't know yet, but we're at least getting a glimpse of a UCF without Dillon Gabriel, and I think it's important that we kind of get an idea of what that UCF is because Dillon Gabriel has been a heart and soul to this program, just like Mackenzie Milton before him. And so I think it's important for the sustained success of this program to get a grip and get an idea of what this program is. And this season, I think, is as good a time as any with Dillon Gabriel injured to kind of figure that out.
No, it is. It absolutely is, right? I mean, that's what you got to play for here, and it's.
But you can't forget the season's not over.
No.
It's not like they're 3-7 and they have nothing, no postseason to play for. There's still a bowl game up for grabs. So I mean, it's not a complete, throw in the towel, give up.
No, and it's important to play those games because you have to play these games in order to find your identity to see what works. I mean, when you just look at the Memphis game, I mean, I am, for one, very glad the pass defense has improved over Desmond Ridder because they are going to need it for the Memphis and the SMU games. I'm looking nationally coming into this week, so it doesn't count the games from this week. Seth Hennigan, the freshman quarterback for Memphis, has thrown for the 5th most passing yards in the country with 2,153. And then Tanner Mordecai, the junior quarterback for SMU, is behind him in 6th place with 1,893 passing yards. So these two teams have succeeded very well in the passing game. And if the UCF passing defense can continue what can be the unit that we saw in the Cincinnati game, then I think they could very well be the reason why UCF could come out and win those games. But if this is more of a one-off thing and we're going to see the pass defense that we've seen previously this season, then that's not going to be end up going very well. So I think that those two key games for the rest of the season with Memphis and SMU, I think more than likely those games are going to go through the UCF secondary, and that's going to be a big test for them.
Well, I think the Memphis game is more important than the SMU game. Well, for the fact that SMU is a better team.
No, I agree.
SMU is the second best team in the conference.
Yeah, and I think they're a legit threat to Cincinnati. I think
they're the only threat to Cincinnati.
Exactly. I want to play this real quick. Gus Malzahn, courtesy of Trace Trelko, who's Sons of UCF, who's at Cincinnati. Here was what Gus had to say about Mikey King.
Yeah, we've had. I don't know how many pick six we've had this year, but it's more, I think, in one season I've ever had. We got to do a better job of that. I mean, that was a big play in the game, and sometimes if it's not there, you can throw the ball away. I think it's first down or something. We're growing, we're learning. It's a tough environment for a true freshman quarterback to come in. We weren't able to run the football effectively to try to help him out. That was tough.
And he's absolutely right. The play wasn't there. He telegraphed it badly, and it was a great jump on the ball. I mean, that was a go for broke break from the get go. If he was able to recognize it and pulled it down, guy would have run right by, and you have an opportunity. I believe that pass actually was to Jake Hescock, who kind of fell over. I don't know what actually caused him to fall over, but he seemed to be, he ended up on the ground. That's part of that youth thing, is you have to recognize the fact that, defensive back may be playing soft, but he's coming up, and he went for an all or nothing play, and you gift wrapped it in. That was, right in front. That's, meatball. You grab that thing and you just go. And to Cincinnati's credit, made sure the ball was tucked in before running, because as we've seen, you run before the ball's in and you tend to drop it. But that comes with just being a little more savvy of what's around you. And, that's part of learning. He's a true freshman. That's a true freshman mistake. And you have to understand that those are going to happen, but you got to work through them. And he's right. What a punch to the gut that was. You don't want to, take an offensive drive and turn it into I think it was a 73 or 74 yard interception return for a touchdown. So
we've seen, he made the point there that he's never seen so many pick six gone through. I don't recall this many pick six in a UCF season, right? Like going back to the Boise game, the first drive of the game for UCF where Dylan Gabriel throws the pick six, obviously the pick six against Louisville. Man, it's just, as a sports fan, right? You just know when it's not your year sometimes. Well, we can explain why things aren't going well and stuff like that, but sometimes we just have to accept the fact that when it's not your year, it's not your year.
Yeah, well, I mean, someone's going to win every game, someone's going to lose every game, and in that particular play, it was a very short pass. It was a long distance of a throw to get short yardage, and he just did not account for the defender and who was making a break on the ball. And that was, once he caught it, he was gone. It was no chance. Obviously, the receiver, or I think it was Hescock, was on an island, all the way by the sideline, because it was such a short yardage north and south pass. There was no one, there was no time for anyone to come back towards the ball. So and he had it in stride. So once he got it, it was gone. But you have to be aware, and that spatial awareness, the awareness of the defense, that's something you have to learn and hone and cultivate. You got to recognize the different colors on the field, and use your peripheral vision. And hey, I see movement. I can't bring that ball back in. You see, if you don't see him coming, that's you having tunnel vision. But again, he telegraphed that throw. He was locked in on Hescock. He didn't deviate at all. So there was a very smart break on the ball, because unless he was going to fool everyone and turn and go to the right, that was the only place he was going to, and he went there.
So I guess now the question is, and I want to touch on this really quickly, because UCF has fought for this over the past few years. So Cincinnati going forward, SMU seems to look like the biggest threat to them right now. But looking at this game, one thing that really sticks out to me with Cincinnati that I think they really shot themselves in the foot with in the second half was penalties. I'm looking at the penalty stats right now. UCF had 7 penalties for 47 yards. Cincinnati had 9 penalties for 74 yards. I think I saw somebody tweet this. I think it was Jeff. that Jeff Sharon, that Cincinnati, the only team that can beat Cincinnati right now is themselves.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. See, I don't
Well-
agree with that. I don't agree with that. That makes it sound like they're this unbeatable team. I strongly disagree with that. They're very good. Don't get me wrong. They're really good, and they have a shot to make the playoff. But I give SMU a good chance to beat them. SMU has the firepower to do it, especially if Cincinnati may have to beat them twice back to back.
Well, not only that, but every one of Joey Gatewood's passes ended up being a pass interference call on the defense.
Yeah.
And he had multiple passes. So I mean, there's some of those yardage and penalties late in the game. There were little ones here and there. There was an offsides on a kickoff, so it moved from the 25 to the 30 for UCF. I mean, there's little bits here and there. They add up, and there were a lot of penalties. 9's still a good amount of penalties, but I mean, the game was already pretty much in hand when those penalties occurred.
Yeah, I agree.
Those pass interference were by the second unit. That 5-yard offsides was when the game was well in hand, and it's just a little mistake here and there. But for the most part, I don't think the penalties really played a material role in this game at all.
What a great word, material. You are on top of your game, Drew.
I have to. That for us, that's an industry term in the accounting world. Materiality is a big thing when you have a rounding or slight difference. Is it material enough that you have to do something with? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But it's all about what really played a role or plays a role and what doesn't or didn't. And I don't think those penalties really played any role of really.
Well, and it's
UCF
tough when you have a big lead. If you're the team with the big lead, it's tough to be staying focused in the second half. And I think even Luke said that a little bit in his post game. But look, we got bigger issues to worry about than
got a Memphis game to worry about.
Yeah, let's kind of start wrapping this up. First of all, phenomenal job by everybody who's tuning in for a 56-21 recap on a negative side. Props to you. Drew and Bryson told me, no, there are going to be people out there. I'm like, are you sure? No, you're people out there. So thank you. First of all.
I said from the get-go, it was important that we do this. Aside from the fact that fans that are upset, maybe they want to vent, maybe they have questions. And I think we owe it to them. They're the lifeblood of the program, that we still do what we do, even in a blowout. It doesn't matter if it's a huge blowout win, a blowout loss, or anything in between. We need to keep doing this. We got to talk about it. We want the fan interaction. We want to be able to help answer questions, and in some cases give us stuff to think about. So I think it was really important that we all come together and do this. And so thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Hey, speaking of fan interaction, by the way, we haven't really gotten the chance to look at social media much at all this time, because other than some well wishes I saw a couple of well wishes for Gus. I saw a couple that were frustrated.
He froze.
This is why we can't have nice things.
But I do.
All right, he's frozen. Again, Bryson, we take it. I want to ask you real quick, because people have been asking me this while I've been stepping in and out. Gatewood, we saw him a little bit. He's some people think, why is he in there? Some people are saying, why not to play him more? Where do you stand on Gatewood? What are your thoughts on him overall? His role with this team moving forward would be what if it was up to you?
Well, he's the backup quarterback, and it showed on the end of the game. He was the second string guy. When they pulled Mikey Keene out, he was the guy. He reminds me a lot of Darryl Mack, guy who can run, guy who can't throw. You look at his stats in the limited time that he's played at Kentucky and in Auburn, it's nothing to write home about. So I don't see him as anything more than really a running guy. At that point, when he comes in the field, what's going to happen. He's going to run the ball. We talk about how they had the questionable passing play against Navy. He hasn't completed a pass. It's not anything that he brings to the table there that's going to scare anyone to go into a pass defense. He's on the field, he's going to run. I think his future needs to be as a tight end. You could teach a guy that size to block, and he's got the size. What's he like, 6'4", 6'5"? I mean, he's a big kid. put a little bit of beef on him, and you have a working tight end. He's athletic enough, but I don't see him anything more than kind of a gimmicky run guy.
Am I back yet?
You are back.
Yeah,
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. I was just saying that that I was going to go over the gifts that I got in response for my like, hey, how's everyone feeling? I started with a Rick and Morty gift that said I'm okay with this because
This is fine.
Because it's not more of a this is fine kind of way. It's more of a I'm okay with this in an accepting kind of way, because this was the number 3 team in the country. I wasn't expecting anything big, but in the end, we came up and we did some solid stuff. We obviously have made mistakes on special teams. You don't want to do that, and that's something to go forward. But the pass defense was the best that we've ever seen it this season, and to do that against the number 3 team in the country, to see Mikey Keene having some good still have some good flashes. I feel fairly good about where the team is going. I mean, going in terms of development. Now, does that mean that I don't think we're going to lose again this season? No, of course not. Memphis and SMU are still on the table. But this performance makes me feel like those games are certainly winnable. There's another gift that I got of a guy cringing. There is one where a nun is being held to go shame, shame, shame. There's another
get a little Game of Thrones action in there.
There's another one that's from a Netflix show that says I'm not surprised. And then there was another one that's actually was very sweet from Yoli Ole. So thank you for that, where it's a gif of a little, I'm guessing it's a dog. It's a very crudely drawn dog, but there's a text on there that says I will always be there for you, and there's a word there and to the crudely scribbled dog. So that I thought that was very sweet. So if you're watching this, thank you for that. And honestly, I think that that's really where I feel like we might need to be as a fan base right now, because this team is developing. Obviously, also Gus Malzahn might be going through something right now, and this team is just going through the ringer. Injuries galore. We've lost some of the centerpieces of this team, so we have to figure out who we are without them. So this is just kind of a time where, as fans, I think we need to have patience. Now, obviously, that doesn't excuse anybody of criticism. The special teams has made mistakes, and they definitely need to correct those. But other than that, I mean, what else are you going to do? It's not our year. We've said it before. It's not our year. So it's just about developing and just making the best of what we can, and that's what Gus is doing, and I think that's what we should do too.
And it's not anybody's year in the state of Florida. Mike Doty noting Miami's down 28-10 to North Carolina. Florida lost to LSU. Developing story there in the postgame. They asked the quarterback, Anthony Richardson, if he's thinking of transferring it. He didn't really deny it. So that's always good. South Florida.
Florida looks so promising after that Bama win.
Yeah,
I mean,
not so much. Well, they lost to Bama.
They didn't win against Bama. They had the 2-point loss, but I mean, they might as well. That was a moral victory for them.
That might be their highlight of the year. And then USF blew an 11-point lead in the fourth quarter against Tulsa. Florida State might be right now the best feel-good team right now at 2-4 in the state.
This is a depressing turn of events.
What happened to the state, man? We used to be good at football.
Not anymore. No.
Thank God for the Buccaneers.
U is back.
The Buccaneers is the only
bus.
The Buccaneers is the only positive in football right now in the NFL in the state right now in general. By the way, another developing story. Iowa is trailing Purdue at the half, 14-7. If they were to get upset by Purdue, guess who probably moves up to number 2?
Oh, crud. It's the 2007 season all over again.
Oh, man.
Which benefits Cincinnati the most.
2007, number 2 was the cursed spot. Anyone who's there lost.
So you're calling a Cincinnati loss is what you're saying.
Also, the curse story, last time I checked, Georgia and Kentucky are getting to halftime, and Georgia's only up 14-7.
Yeah, they're fine. I'm not worried about it.
So I don't. Hey, the game is still close. If Georgia's not blowing them out, I think they might have a shot.
Georgia will choke somewhere. That's what they do. Georgia does not win national championships.
Well, that's down the
I
road.
wasn't even alive the last time they won a national championship.
The only reason I bring this up is Cincinnati could move up to number 2. And I know there's been a lot of chatter about Cincinnati. It's UCF 17 and Cincinnati. Totally different seasons.
Totally different team format.
And totally different arguments. Cincinnati has something that UCF did not have in 17 or 18. A marquee win in the regular season at Notre Dame. People
and a top-end defense. I mean, UCF 17 was a good team, no doubt. Their defense is nothing like Cincinnati's defense.
And if the committee has been consistent, they like teams that play good defense. They've been very vocal about it, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, they do. And look, who you beat matters. Otherwise, we wouldn't be leaving the American going to the Big 12. There's a reason why we're leaving. It's because we're getting more money because you're in bigger brands. So, end of story. I mean, Cincinnati has a chance. I think they have a chance. And if the Big Ten kind of beats each other up, another upset or two, I think they got a chance they can get in for sure. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's what it's weird, right? It's funny. Everybody wants the underdog as long as it's their team. Once it's somebody else's team, screw that, right? like UCF, we were 4 years ago. Hey, come on, guys, defend us. We should be in. We should be in. Now that it's Cincinnati's turn, screw them. We don't want them in. Screw that.
Well,
that's the reaction.
Everyone wants their team, and as we said, fans were a little spoiled from the run that UCF had, and there's jealousy there. Let's call it what it is. They're jealous that Cincinnati. It's now Cincinnati's turn. UCF had their run, and it did not go the way fans wanted. 17 did not go the way fans wanted, and they came up on the short end. The CFP committee just did not give them much of a chance. Well, didn't really give them any chance. And 18 was no different. I think if Mackenzie Milton was still around, they may have been 6th, maybe 5th. And I don't see them getting in at the 4 without some extra help. This year, Cincinnati, because there was that continuity, UCF didn't have the continuity from 17 to 18 from a coaching standpoint. Cincinnati lost almost nobody from 20 to 21. And that continuity really has helped propel them to higher heights. And I think that was the missing piece. If the coaching staff never changed, Scott Frost stayed, and they still put the same thing on there where they ran the table like they did in 18. Right.
Let me jump in here. We got some news here. Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel. I think this hopefully is good news. We'll see. Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel, who's also in Cincinnati, just posted on Twitter this following statement that I think UCF came out. Gus's daughter, Kenzie Stander, who lives in Birmingham, gave birth to her first child, a son, earlier this week. His daughter was readmitted to the hospital due to complications, but Gus said she is now stable and doing well. He had already been planning to fly this afternoon from Cincinnati to Birmingham to visit them even before Kenzie was readmitted.
That just made him rush out. That was probably the difference. Instead of finishing the show with Mark Daniels, they cut it short. He left in a hurry. But I mean, the good thing is stable. That's the big word right there. Stable.
And that explains the jet. Like I was thinking the whole time, you don't just get a private jet.
Obviously not.
No. So
there was obviously something planned, but the fact that they pushed the issue showed that there was enough of a seriousness. I mean, new mom goes back to the hospital. Obviously, you don't play games with that. So I would have done the same thing in his shoes if my daughter had to go back to the hospital. So I don't blame him at all. I'm glad it looks like things are working out.
Yeah, and remember what he said when he got here. And this coaching staff, it's about caring about the person, right? Family first. Remember, that was a big theme.
Family first.
And I think this is an example of that. So, again, still thoughts, but at least we're getting some clarity on what is going on here. And good job by Jason on that, getting on that.
I'm really glad the Orlando Sentinel brought him in because, I mean,
fantastic.
He's fantastic hire. Always loved Jason's work with 247. And with this, I don't live in Orlando, and I told Jason this. I don't live in Orlando, but because of his work, I went and got a subscription to the Sentinel because I really like Jason's work. Jason Beatty, he's the beat writer for UCF for the Orlando Sentinel. Recent hire, and he's really good. If you haven't been reading his work, you're making a mistake, because he does a good job of keeping on the pulse of what's going on. It's not word salad. It's good quality stuff. So I got to throw Jason some kudos there. Read his work if you get a chance.
Yeah, I agree. I actually met with Jason before I joined the Banneret, and he was one of the people that I talked to when you guys finally came knocking and making sure that this was where I wanted to be, and he really helped confirm what I really wanted to kind of helped me confirm that yes, I really wanted to take the opportunity to be here. And so Jason's been a very nice kind of, I guess, journalism mentor to me as far as on the younger side, and I'm very happy to see that he's with the Sentinel. I've already met up with him a couple of times since then. He was at the UCF Hall of Fame when I was there when I was there last week. So yes, I would also second that. Definitely read Jason's work, because he's a great person, and he definitely has the pulse of what's going on throughout the university. So great work getting that statement, Jason, and I'm excited to see what else you might go do in the near future.
I get to cheat. I only sit like a few seats from him in the press box during the game, so I get to cheat on that.
Now, yeah, there you go. Now let me play this clip, because this is kind of what started a lot of this. Is Luke Fickell. Now, this is Brandon Hellwig, our good friend from UCFsports.com, who is
glad you're feeling better, Brandon.
It's his birthday, by the way. Happy birthday.
Hey, happy birthday, Brandon.
Not I don't think the ideal way he would have liked to have spent his birthday, but he's doing better.
I understand. I've had bad luck on my birthday with UCF football. I mean, it's just that it's always their gift.
Here's what Luke Fickell said in the postgame that drew the reaction from Chris Vanini and Mike Pedreglia.
Make sure, I think Coach Malzahn had to bolt out on his daughter, maybe had some complications or something. I think he had to get a private flight. Just make sure, if anything, say a prayer for him, right? And make sure he's all right. And his daughter's okay. Thanks.
All right. So that was his reaction. There was at the end of his press conference, wishing Gus well. And I can tell you guys, because I cover a lot of different sports, the coaches behind the scenes in conferences have a good relationship. There's they meet in these coaching meetings and things like that behind the scenes. And, we forget that these coaches, who are obviously scrutinized a lot, have families and things like that. And I think that was, that's
they're
kind
human.
of, yes, absolutely.
They're people, they're people, we're people. You strip away the game, and, we're just people, living our lives. So, I think it was a very nice gesture on Luke's part. It took no effort to do, but these coaches talk to each other. It's not like fans where there's a lot of venom. Most of these guys are respectful of each other. They respect them as people. Now there are some that do not, but there's no built-in animosity here like there is with some of UCF and Cincinnati's fans. Those are, what's the word that term that George Leary used to say, like anonymous internet weasels, or
Wow.
He used to say that. He used to call them like internet weasels.
He had some interesting cliches. Yes.
But, there's a lot of guys who hide behind, screen names and can say all these venomous things, but these are guys who see each other face to face, and so there is that level of respect and courtesy. So I don't want to say I'm happy, because obviously you don't want to be in that position, but I think it was a very nice gesture on Luke's part to say, hey, let's give some positive thoughts, positive energy towards Gus and his family.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And again, more important things. Eric Edwards, does this count as a blast from Jay? I call it a Beatty blast.
Beatty blast.
He had it first.
Is it a Beatty blast or Beatty bomb?
No, Beatty blast. Woj has got the bomb cornered. Although I know, so Beatty blast. He liked it. I think he approved of it when I first ran with it. So
hey, Danny Medina had her Danny bombs.
that's true. A good friend, Danny. Hope she's doing all right. She's in Cincinnati, I think, for that game.
She was at the game. I hope she is not drowning her sorrows too much.
She'll be all right. I have a feeling.
You know,
Well, I have a feeling on that. We'll see.
you know,
But,
speaking of positivity, because I have to imagine we're going to wrap the show soon.
yeah, let's wrap it up. We got
There are a few things that, around UCF sports that I'd like to plug, because while UCF football did lose today, which is never something you'd like, there are other UCF sports going on where there are some pretty amazing things going on. For example, in women's tennis, Evgenia Levashova and Marie Mattel just advanced to the Elite Eight at the ITA regionals, which are being hosted here in Orlando. So the two of them are doing well in singles action. And men's soccer tonight, after their coming off their win against number 6 ranked Tulsa, they're now going to be playing number 24 ranked SMU.
big rivalry with a fascinating
plus.
Big rivalry with some fascinating storylines in that match there, Bryson.
Yes, indeed. I've been working on a profile story about Nick Taylor that will be going up on the Black and Gold Banneret website at some point in the near future. So please be on the lookout for that, and follow me at It's Bryson Turner on Twitter, because I will also be posting. Will update that when the story goes live. But it's a fantastic story, and I can't wait for you all to see it. But as far as tonight goes, 8 p.m. ESPN Plus, Nick Taylor makes his return to SMU in a bitter men's soccer rivalry. And I'll give you one little sneak peek. When I talked to Nick Taylor after the Tulsa match, he told me that the UCF SMU rivalry, in his opinion, was and men's soccer was stronger than that of the war on I-4. So if that doesn't tell you how deep this rivalry goes, I don't know what does.
Well, I mean, that's similar to, ask fans right now, is the UCF Cincinnati rivalry stronger or the war of I-4 in football? And they're going to say many are going to say Cincinnati, because, good teams versus good team usually
it's our Big 12 rivals there, Drew. It's our Big 12 rivals.
I'm hoping that the Big 12 does an East-West, so that UCF and Cincinnati can still play each other every year, or if they do North-South, that it becomes a permanent crossover, because those two teams need to keep playing each other. This is healthy. This is actually really important for the new Big 12. Is you need to have these rivalries continue on that have developed in the previous conference. Obviously UCF USF was natural when UCF moved to the Big East, now American. But you need something crossing over. And UCF Houston has had a lot of good games, but the animosity just isn't there like you're seeing with UCF Cincinnati, that has really developed over the last 4 years. Has gotten really, really hostile. And you can use that. You can market that. That becomes something that you want to put as one of your marquee matchups, rivalry week and everything like that. That's what you want to develop with the new conference. But yes, the space uniforms look great. I think it's the cleanest look to date out of all the space uniforms. The others were a lot busier. This one is very clean. Obviously, using the white helmet, because UCF is pretty much stuck using a white helmet all year. I think what they did with the helmet stripe, having the UCF alums that worked within NASA, is the coolest thing they have done yet. And they've done a lot of cool things. That's by far the coolest. I think it is amazing that all these non-athletes that just worked for NASA as contractors, as employees, whatever, get their chance to be important in UCF's history. Because as we know, FTU, Florida Technological University, was designed to be a feeder to NASA, and it was when they decided to expand beyond just that is when UCF was really, the modern UCF was born. But it's always cool to look back at what brought us here to this date. It's the one cool game where we get to bring out our Citronaut gear, and no, I am not on the bandwagon of changing the name. UCF is still going to be the Knights. They need to stay the Knights, but this is a very cool secondary change where you just throw everything on the side and come out with the blue and the black and the alternate logo. I just only wish they'd put the Citronaut on the side of the helmet instead of the block UCF. Make it go all the way. That'd just be cool. But,
Now,
I may like uniforms a bit.
Now, if I remember right, back when there was all that apparel drama going on, because I want to make sure we clarify this. This is something that UCF does and not Nike, correct?
That's correct. This is all done in-house. In fact, the numbers, which are really cool, the numbers are done with, and if you take 0 through 9, they all ultimately have every one of the shuttle flights in them. When you look at all the numbers, and they're in these blocks throughout the numbers, that's done in-house. All the designs are done in-house. So UCF should still be able to design that in-house. It's just the actual template they print onto could potentially change. So it may different jersey template, different pants template, but as far as the design goes, it's still what they do. It just gets printed out. So I think regardless of whether they stay with Nike, end up with Adidas, UCF still should be able to make a really cool Space Game, jersey, as well as alternate Citronaut uniforms for the other sports. My hope is that they can expand it, do maybe a more unique design with your Citronaut stuff for basketball. It's actually it's kind of a plain Jane design. I remember a handful of years ago when they first did them in baseball, they had this it was white. It didn't have the Canaveral blue, but it was still a really cool design to get it started. But I'd love to see a little more uniqueness on the other sports instead of just football. But
amen to that.
Those guys, they need love. I mean, if you look beyond, actually, if you look at all the uniforms, including the football, nothing's really changed. It's either a very kind of plain template, outside maybe soccer. I think soccer just seems to work really well, but everything else seems kind of plain Jane, or it was a great redesign, in 2016, and we're in 2021, which in uniform years for any school not named Penn State or Alabama or USC is a lifetime. UCF has never had uniforms longer in the FBS era as they've had these 2016s. Even the Gold O'Learys didn't last this many years. So it's time for something new one way or the other. Wow. It's either through Nike, time to redesign, because you're using an old template anyway from 2014 that's been pretty much retired since 17. Everyone else has moved on. And or you go with Adidas, who has obviously everything we brand new.
One thing, we just opened up a can of worms here. Holy mackerel!
Eric,
by a can of worms, you'd mean a can of common sense. I mean, you can sit and be like, "Oh, these are the best things since sliced bread." Well, apparently the sliced bread's a little old, and hard as toast, and dry. It was great when it was fresh, but it's not fresh anymore. It's time for something new, one way or the other. Change is needed. Change is good.
Speaking of something new, Eric Edwards does make a very good point in the chat. If UCF and Houston are able to going into the Big 12 together, are able to correlate, you could honestly make a nice Space Game rivalry out of those two. You put the Space Game. You put the.
I think that's kind of cool, Eric.
You put on the space uniforms for when Houston comes here. Maybe design a road alternate Space Game uniform. If Houston wants to get on board, then that could be good. And we have a space rivalry in the Big 12 between UCF and Houston. If I were like a marketing department person on that, I would be all in on that.
I like the idea. I know Eric just kind of facepalmed that. No, that's cool stuff. And it's clever. Yeah, you team up with the other school, and it adds to the marketability. It's all about marketing and finding ways to expose your program in a good way, as well as the conference. These are smart. It's a smart idea. I think it's kind of cool.
I blame you, Eric Edwards, for this. This is you just got Drew on his favorite topic of jerseys topic, and you just let him go. Now I expect a knee-jerk reaction based on the uniforms now. Is that what we're going to get here? I feel like we're foreshadowing here.
I mean, I cannot guarantee one way or the other, but I potentially could.
I feel like that's going to have to be now a part of the knee jerk reaction is your analysis on the gear.
I mean, well,
It could be its own separate article. I bet Drew can go on about.
well, it could, but what I do is for every game, and Jeff's seen this because he's been in the press box, is I have a Google Doc and I write basically a stream of consciousness during the game. It's the notes I use for the knee jerk, and there's always a pregame spot that mentions what is everybody wearing, both teams.
I feel like you've just found an extra topic for your knee-jerk reaction, especially the rest of the way here, depending on how games go. I feel like you got material here.
I'm sorry
Always
for
material
about this, Eric, but Drew. But what can I say? Like, it's a cool prospect, and Drew and I like cool things.
Hey, more
we
power
like
to you
cool
guys.
things, you dinosaur.
I just like, regular jerseys. I'm good with this.
Get off my lawn,
It's all good.
kids.
It's one game, Eric. It's one game.
No, it's been a long day. It's been an interesting day. We've had a little bit of everything on this night shift edition. But we're going to end it on this. No, we promised an end on a positive note by Mike Doty. Wanted to end on a positive
Was that
note.
not a positive note?
That is. More Space merch drops October 18th. Oh, boy.
Oh, Drew, there's Christmas right there.
Well, I'll be honest. When it comes to jersey collecting, I'm a bit of a snob now. I don't buy replicas. I don't. I have some. I don't buy them anymore. I only buy team issued or game used. That's just the progression of my collection. If I bought replicas, I've already broken 2 closets by too much weight. I would break more. I've seen
this. Yeah, I've seen this. Yes.
Yeah, I right now the closet is 2 really thick bars with screws into the studs on both sides. It's the only way that keeps them from like crashing because I can't hold those bars on my own. The jerseys are too heavy.
Understandable. Well, for more questions about uniforms and jerseys, where can they tweet at you there, Drew?
You can tweet me at StatBoyDrew. I will be very unlike other people. I will be very honest and upfront about uniforms. I do not I do not kiss up to anyone. I will give you a straight, honest take.
Shots fired.
Bryson, to follow the UCF SMU match, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at It's Bryson Turner, but I would also very much encourage everybody to watch if they have ESPN Plus to tune in with me. It's always fun to watch and react to this with other people, and I'm very excited to see this rivalry match unfold, especially since it's against a ranked team.
Maybe Drew
is real.
Maybe Drew can break down the soccer gear tonight.
I love UCF soccer kits. Oh, they're beautiful.
They were. I
love the soccer kits. They're beautiful.
I was at the Tulsa game with Trace, and I did actually quite enjoy the uniforms they have for that.
I own a few of the soccer tops between women's and men's over the years. I do have a few.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Eric.
The collection over there is, it as you know, it's not small. At least 70 UCF team issued or game worn, well over 130 total from all sports and all teams. And I like jerseys.
I can tell.
You can follow me at It's Bryson Turner for updates on the UCF SMU soccer game. You can tune in to watch on ESPN Plus at 8 p.m., which I definitely would encourage you all to do. And UCF athletics is not done today. So it's in about, it's about 2.5 hours. So get some rest.
Tune in.
Eat, enjoy Alabama, Mississippi State, Georgia, Kentucky, and 8 p.m. ESPN Plus.
And there you go. So for Bryson, for Andrew, I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this unique episode of Night Shift. Keep us on updated on blackandgoldbanneret.com and UCF. Also follow us on Facebook, all your social medias. We'll have a podcast coming up this week, and we always do it every week. And certainly we appreciate everybody's support to people that tune in not only to the live shows, but to read our content as well as to listen to our podcast and so forth. So a lot of hard work being done, and certainly we appreciate the support you all are having and are giving us the support. And again, you follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, and of course, like us on Facebook. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page and like us here. For Drew, for Bryson, I'm Eric. We see you. We'll say good night for now. We'll till next time. This has been Night Shift on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube